he suddenly noticed something floating in the sea. Curiosity got the better of him, and he rushed over to take a closer look, only to find an injured penguin. Without hesitation, he wrapped the little oil-covered creature in a towel. Seeing that it was still barely breathing, he quickly brought it home. Once inside, he placed the tiny penguin where the sunlight could reach it. Then he took a small plate of fish from the fridge and began feeding it, one piece at a time. After the penguin regained a bit of strength, João followed the instructions he'd seen in a nature documentary. He washed out a basin, filled it with clean water, and added some olive oil. Gently, he moistened the penguin's stiff, clumped feathers to soften them, then carefully used a small brush to clean off the thick layers of oil stuck to its body. The penguin, as if sensing João's kindness, didn't struggle at all. It stayed perfectly still, allowing him to brush away the grime. As the soft bristles glided over its tiny body, it let out a satisfied chirp and fixed its gaze on the old man in front of it. At that moment, this little drifter from the Antarctic experienced, for the very first time, the warmth and care of a human being. Soon after, João's wife, Maria, returned home from the market. João sat anxiously on the sofa, terrified she would discover the unexpected guest, but there were already signs: oil smudges on the fridge, and a plate of dried fish that had mysteriously disappeared. Still, Maria didn't say a word. Just when João thought he might have gotten away with it, a noise came from the bathroom. Realizing he couldn't hide it any longer, he opened the door, and there stood the little penguin in plain sight. After saying that, João immediately shut the door. He explained to his wife that the penguin was covered in oil and would die if they didn't help it, but Maria followed right behind him, insisting that the little penguin had to go, no matter what. Meanwhile, the little guy peeked through the crack in the door, completely unaware of how much its fate was about to change. It soon became fascinated by a roll of toilet paper, waddling over and tugging at it playfully with its beak. João pleaded with Maria, asking for just 1 week, enough time to heal the penguin before returning it to the sea. Before he could finish persuading her, a loud crash came from the bathroom. When the couple opened the bathroom door, the room was a total mess, torn apart by the curious little guest. Seeing the chaos, Maria could only sigh in frustration. She walked off in silence, no longer interested in arguing with her stubborn husband. And just like that, the penguin stayed. João continued cleaning the oil off its body with care. The weather on Ilha Grande was unpredictable, and soon it began to drizzle. Worried the penguin would catch cold, João asked his wife to help hold it still, while he stepped into a room that hadn't changed in 20 years. He opened a wardrobe and took out a woolen hat, intending to cut it and make a sweater for the penguin. But when Maria saw that he had picked up the wool hat their son used to wear, she couldn't help but speak up. But João hesitated for a moment, then still went ahead and cut the wool hat with the scissors. Maria didn't stop him. Maria said nothing more, because she knew this might be the perfect chance for her husband to finally step out of the shadows. Once dressed in its cozy new outfit, the penguin waddled happily around the house, its plump little body bouncing with each step. Watching it, Maria's heart softened. For a brief second, she felt like her young son had returned. In the days that followed, João seemed like a changed man. He woke up early every morning to prepare food for the penguin, just like he used to make breakfast for his son. The penguin's presence brought warmth back into his once numb heart, but happy moments never last forever. After a few more days of care, João once again pleaded with Maria for more time. Eventually, he nursed the penguin back to full health, its feathers now sleek and shiny. Though it pained him deeply, he knew the time had come to return the penguin to the sea. The next day, he got ready to take the penguin out to sea by boat. Its silly, clumsy demeanor immediately caught the attention of a curious neighborhood girl. When she realized it was a penguin she had only ever seen on TV, she was beyond excited. Too young to understand the complicated emotions of adults, she wasn't scared of João's quiet and distant nature. She ignored her panicked mother's calls and instead asked what the penguin's name was.
He doesn't have one.
I think his name should be Ding Ding. Yes, Ding Ding!
And just like that, the penguin got its name. But little Dindim had no idea that this name would go on to touch the hearts of thousands in the years to come. The little penguin now had a name, but that only made João's reluctance to say goodbye even stronger. Still, he knew Dindim belonged to the wild, so he gently called its name, as if trying to carve it into his heart one last time, while reluctantly rowing his small boat, the oars gliding across the water, carrying him into the shimmering depths of the sea. He reached a small island far from shore and gently placed Dindim on the sand. With concern in his voice, he gently reminded, "Don't wander off," then turned away with a heavy heart, forcing himself to leave. To his surprise, Dindim chirped loudly and waddled after him as if it didn't want João to leave either. João had thought this was their final farewell. But the next morning, Maria found Dindim back at their doorstep, happily climbing the steps like it was returning home. It waddled straight into the house and right up to João. João was stunned, but then his face lit up with a smile he hadn't worn in years. Seeing that rare joy on his face, Maria chose to say nothing more. João then opened the fridge and took out some fish to feed Dindem. Watching the little guy gobble them down one by one with such joy, he couldn't help but smile like a proud father. Maria saw all of this, quietly taking it in. From that moment on, João became noticeably more cheerful. He even greeted old friends he hadn't spoken to in years, and, with Dindem in tow, went around asking them for extra fish, looking every bit like a doting old dad. The once reclusive João excitedly told his old buddies about how he and Dindem had met, his usual silence completely gone. Back at home, João began building a little nest for Dindem. To his surprise, the penguin mimicked the rhythm of his hammering with little pecks of its own, ding ding dong dong, as if joining in the work. The cheerful clinks echoed together like a melody of life, gently tugging at João's heartstrings. The love in his eyes practically spilled off the screen. As soon as the nest was done, Dindem waddled in eagerly, turning its little head to inspect the place, almost as if saying, "It's nice, just a bit plain." Then it began collecting odds and ends to decorate its new home. At that moment, a woman carrying a basket of fish happened to walk by. The ever-hungry Dindem couldn't resist and happily trotted after her, tailing her through the trees and all the way into town. But soon, it lost sight of the woman. Still, everything in the town fascinated Dindem. Like a curious child, it started playing with a bicycle by the side of the road. Unfortunately, it bit into a tire and popped it, then panicked and waddled away in a hurry. Moments later, it was distracted by some chickens and ducks, stirring up chaos in the streets. But when it came face to face with a friendly-looking yellow dog, Dindem knew better than to pick a fight. It dashed off and quickly fled back home. And so, the days passed peacefully, filled with warmth and quiet joy. But one day, after preparing breakfast for Dindem, João noticed the little penguin was nowhere to be found. All that remained were a set of waddling footprints on the beach, fading fast as the waves washed over them. João's heart sank. It felt like all the happiness he'd found had been nothing more than a fleeting dream. What he didn't know was that Dindem had simply followed its instincts, swimming back to Argentina for mating season. But as soon as it came ashore, it was spotted by a nearby research team. Dindem, unafraid of humans, was easily placed into a cage. During the examination, researcher Adriana noticed how unusually calm and gentle the penguin was. Her curiosity was instantly piqued. They tagged Dindem's flipper with a GPS tracker for future monitoring. As the breeding season began, other penguins were busy finding mates and raising chicks. But not Dindem. It spent its days collecting bottle caps to decorate its nest or staring longingly out at the sea, its eyes filled with sorrow and longing. Back in Brazil, João was just as lost in thought, often staring at the little nest Dindem had left behind. One day he made up his mind to tear the nest down with a shovel. Luckily, Maria stopped him just in time. In the end, they decided to simply cover the nest with a cloth. 4 months passed in a flash. When the penguin colony began their migration again, Dindem eagerly dove into the ocean, embarking on an 8,000-kilometer journey. Then one day, João heard something coming from under the cloth. He thought it was just another illusion. At first, he didn't pay much attention, but as the sound kept coming, he couldn't help but lift the cloth. Dindem! This time the miracle was real. The little companion he had dreamed about day and night was right there in front of him. Dindem still had that same friendly confidence, waddling straight into the house as if it had never left. João and Maria were overjoyed, their faces glowing with happiness. But Maria soon noticed a red tag on Dindem's wing. After a satisfying feast, João eagerly took Dindem for a stroll around the town. News of the penguin's return spread quickly, and the whole town was in awe. Everyone had heard that Dindem was gone, and that João had become withdrawn since. None of them had expected the penguin to return safely. As people gathered to admire Dindem, João felt a wave of pride swell in his heart. Then, a girl recording video asked a question.
Is he your pet?
Not my pet. He's my friend.
And just like that, a video of João and Dindem went viral online. It caught the attention of Adriana, the researcher. At first, she couldn't believe it. The penguin in the video looked just like the one they had tracked thousands of miles away. But how could a penguin travel so far? Still, for the sake of scientific rigor, Adriana called her journalist friend in Brazil and asked him to visit Ilha Grande to check the tag number on the penguin. João had no idea that he and Dindem were suddenly in the spotlight. He was still enjoying the simple joy of splashing in the sea with his old friend. One day, an unfamiliar man appeared at their doorstep. It was Paulo, the journalist Adriana had sent. When João learned he was here for Dindem, his face tensed and his body took a defensive stance. But thanks to Maria's calming presence and Paulo's repeated assurances, João eventually revealed the number on Dindem's tag. Paulo then asked if he could do a television interview to share this heartwarming story with the world. João refused. He wouldn't disrupt their peaceful life. Paulo didn't insist, but before he left, he still shared what was truly on his mind.
Whatever this is, you and Dindim have quite a friendship. And it gives me hope, you know. That's all. It's made my day,
And with just one sentence from his wife, he's very persistent. João's firm stance began to soften. After a moment of quiet reflection, João finally decided to share this love and warmth with those who needed it. He called out to Paulo, but on one condition.
One thing you need to know for the interview. Dindim comes and goes as he pleases.
as he pleases.
After leaving, Paulo contacted Adriana and told her Dindim's tag number. After verifying it, Adriana was stunned. Dindim really was the same extraordinary penguin they had studied. The whole team was overjoyed. Adriana was both shocked and filled with awe. She took out a photo and gently greeted Dindim. On the day of the interview, the once quiet little house was filled with people for the first time. Even children from the village crowded at the door, trying to get a peek inside. João and Maria sat in front of the camera for the very first time, sharing the incredible story of their bond with Dindim. No one knew exactly what Dindim had gone through during all that time away, but for João, that didn't matter anymore. Just like João said, Dindim was free. It could come and go as it pleased. As long as it remembered him, that was enough. The interview quickly spread across the globe. The story of a penguin swimming 8,000 kilometers every year from Argentina's Patagonian plateau to visit its old friend on Brazil's Ilha Grande touched hearts everywhere. Naturally, it also caught the attention of senior members of the research team. They called Adriana directly.
Our team wants him to live here at the university, in the observation lab.
No, not Dindim.
The board will make a decision in a few weeks. There may be a grant for you and your team.
I will get back to you.
Faced with promises of funding, Adriana hesitated. As December quietly rolled around, Dindim once again made its way toward the sea. Seeing this, João immediately understood. It was time to say goodbye again. He and the little penguin exchanged a long, heartfelt gaze. His eyes brimmed with sorrow, but Dindim still turned and waddled away, slowly vanishing into the waves. At the same time, Adriana was already waiting on the shore. When she saw Dindim come ashore, her inner conflict reached its peak. Some of her colleagues argued that taking Dindim to the lab wasn't a bad thing. There would be other penguins there and it might live a happy life. And with funding secured, they could upgrade their equipment and help even more penguins in the future. But Adriana believed this would strip Dindim of its freedom and shatter the trust and friendship it had built with humans, so she refused. However, as migration season approached again, pressure from higher-ups grew stronger. With funding on the line and her research grinding to a halt, Adriana eventually gave in. They placed Dindim in a cage, preparing to send it to the central research lab. Meanwhile, across the ocean, João had been busy getting everything ready, excited to welcome Dindim home once more. Paulo and his media team also arrived early, hoping to capture the emotional reunion. Even villagers came down to the beach, gathering together with hopeful hearts, ready to witness this special moment. But the longer they waited, the more anticipation turned into quiet tension. No one knew what Dindim was going through. Inside the transport vehicle, Adriana stared at the caged Dindim, her heart weighed down by guilt. As they passed a checkpoint, one of the team members stepped out to hand over the documents. At that moment, Dindim broke free from the cage and leapt from the vehicle. Adriana watched and didn't stop it. Instead, a gentle smile of relief spread across her face. By the time the team member returned, Dindim was gone. He quickly realized what had happened. This was Adriana's choice. The two locked eyes and smiled knowingly. Nothing more needed to be said. Once the vehicle drove off, Dindim emerged from the bushes and began waddling toward the sea. Its steps were slow and heavy, but it didn't stop, because it knew someone was waiting far, far away. Finally reaching the coast, Dindim was met with a steep cliff blocking its path. It tried backing down carefully, but slipped and tumbled hard to the bottom, lying there motionless. Back in the village, João and his family had waited from dawn until dusk, but there was no sign of Dindim. As more and more villagers began to leave, João grew increasingly anxious. With night falling and Dindim still absent, he couldn't take it any longer. He rushed to the beach, scanning the horizon with worried eyes. No one knew how much time had passed, but eventually, Dindim slowly came to. It struggled to its feet, and despite the pain racking its body, resolutely leapt into the sea. Its wounds were severe, but nothing could stop it from reuniting with João. Even with every stroke aching and weak, it pushed forward with all its might. The next morning, the church was filled with people, all gathered to pray for Dindim and João. They hoped the little one would return safe and sound, but none of them knew how badly Dindim was hurt. It had no strength left, drifting with the current, relying only on instinct. After days of anxious waiting, João knew he couldn't sit still any longer. Maria gently held his hand, trying to comfort him. She knew that while João was talking about Dindim, his heart was still haunted by something from long ago. It happened 20 years ago. Back then, their family wasn't wealthy, but with their son by their side, the little seaside cottage was filled with laughter and joy. The day before Miguel's birthday, he begged João to take him out fishing. Moved by his son's eager plea, João promised they would head out to sea the next day. But the weather had other plans. On the morning of Miguel's birthday, the sky was heavy with dark clouds. Out of caution, João decided to cancel the trip. Still, he couldn't resist his son's pleading eyes. In the end, father and son boarded their little fishing boat and drifted out into the open water. Not long after, João sensed something was wrong. Thunder rumbled above, and waves grew increasingly wild. The small boat rocked violently. Then, without warning, a giant wave crashed over them. It all happened so fast, João barely had time to react. That once happy family was completely shattered. The pain of losing his son was like a blade to the heart, cutting deep and leaving scars that never healed. The years passed quickly, and João aged decades in just a few short seasons. Since then, aside from going out to sea to fish for a living, he spent his days rowing that little wooden boat across the swaying waves, searching for any trace of his son. He grew quiet and withdrawn. Whenever old friends like Oscar tried to talk to him, he turned away without a word. He couldn't forgive himself. Now, what was happening with Dindim felt just like what had happened all those years ago, stirring up a deep sense of guilt in his heart once again. Maria knew exactly what he was feeling. With her quiet support, João made up his mind. Despite the darkness outside, he went to find Oscar. Oscar didn't hesitate. He immediately arranged for a boat to be prepared. Under the cover of night, João and his friends sailed into the vast ocean, each boat a flickering beacon chasing the fragile thread of life. In the dim golden light, João called out Dindim's name over and over, his voice echoing across the waves as they all hoped for a miracle. But after an entire night of searching, there was still no sign of Dindim. João's last shred of hope was slipping away. Seeing the heartbreak in his eyes, Oscar suggested they check the far side of the island one more time, and so they kept drifting until dawn. Perhaps it was the rising sun that breathed new hope into João's heart. In the soft light, João suddenly spotted a dark shape in the distance. Without waiting for the boat to get any closer, he dove straight into the icy waters and swam toward it. It was Dindim. In that moment, all of João's long-held strength seemed to drain from his body. After handing Dindim to Oscar, he was completely drained of strength. In the end, it was only with the help of his companions that João managed to climb back onto the boat. But Dindim was completely still. João clutched the little penguin tightly to his chest, the sorrow in his eyes like a silent confession of guilt, of grief, of a father begging for forgiveness. Tears welled up and spilled over, his pain too deep for words. He could only pray, and maybe, just maybe, heaven was moved by his unwavering love, because suddenly Dindim's tightly shut eyes began to flutter. Everyone exhaled at once. The little penguin had come back. João's tears of sorrow turned to tears of joy. In that instant, the knot in his heart, the loss he had carried for so long, finally began to unravel. He let go of the past and found peace. The days that followed were filled with laughter once more, and the house brimmed with life again. 6 months later, a healthy, lively Dindim set off on the journey back to Argentina. As always, it turned to glance back at João before disappearing into the sea.
See you next time, my friend.
This is a true story from Brazil. In real life, João and Dindim met in 2011, but after 2018, Dindim never returned. Researchers believe the penguin may have found a lifelong mate and taken on the responsibility of raising a family, pausing the extraordinary bond it shared with João. But this was more than just a heartwarming tale of friendship. It was a healing journey, a rediscovery of the meaning of life. After losing his son, João fell into a darkness deeper than he had ever known. He thought he'd live the rest of his life drowning in guilt and sorrow, until Dindim came along and changed everything. Though Dindim eventually left, João had already learned to let go. He learned to face the future with courage. In the long story of life, the changing seasons carry quiet metaphors. Those pure chance encounters like dewdrops at dawn are often gifts fate has hidden in the folds of time. Looking back from the edge of a changing season, we finally understand. Every farewell at dusk is quietly preparing for the rise of the stars. Life's richness is never found in what we hold on to forever, but in how we let the ashes of parting nourish new beginnings. And when the migratory birds sweep past the eaves once again, the promises carried off by the monsoon winds may return, like morning mist gently kissing the fields, just like the rusted wind chime hanging from the corner of an old temple, still echoing the clear, trembling sound of that very first meeting.